Thank you everybody very much for coming along to this session. Hope everyone managed to get here okay from across the halls. I'm Jessica Jones and I'm here from the Royal College of Music where I work as a digital learning manager. We've been using Canvas for a year now. We launched this time last year and I'm just going to talk today how we've been using Canvas in particular to support our one-to-one teaching at the college. So just to put into context a bit about our institution, we are a music conservatoire, and ever since we were founded in 1882, we have focused on training musicians to the highest international level. So our primary teaching approach is practical music making, and that includes performing, composing, and conducting. But we are a university. We do award undergraduate and postgraduate and research degrees. And so because of that, our students also have to take a series of academic and contextual classes to give them the qualifications and the experience they need to be able to earn their degrees. We are a very international institution. 50% of our students are from the UK. The other 50% are from 60 different countries around the world, which I've learnt this morning is 10 more countries than Canvas. And our professors too are international. Often our professors fly in just for the day to teach before they fly back out to their countries where they're working as musicians. We do have quite a large professor to student ratio that you may have noticed, and that really reflects our core teaching approach, which is primarily the one-to-one music lesson. But this overflows into our academic and our contextual classes as well, which are often taught at the one-to-one level or in small group coaching or mentoring situations. So we don't have that many lectures or seminars like the traditional university does. So our core teaching model is based on the conservatoire tradition, and when every student arrives at college, whether they're an undergraduate or postgraduate student, they are assigned a professor who they more or less meet with on a regular weekly basis for a one-to-one lesson. And this model is based on the master apprentice system that is quite prevalent throughout music conservatoires in higher education. It's at the core of all of our students' teaching experience, and it's often why our students choose to study at conservatoires like the Royal College of Music, because they want that intensive study on their chosen instrument. The master apprentice model has remained largely unchanged and somewhat unchallenged for about 2 centuries, and there are good reasons for that. Being music students and music teachers, the one-to-one lesson allows for that exploration of the music. They can explore their creativity, their artistry, and their technique. Essentially, they can play their instrument in the room and hear themselves, which is important. But secondly, having your lesson on a one-to-one basis really allows the teaching to be tailored to that student in front of you. The teacher is able to tailor to that student's learning styles, learning preferences, interests, abilities, strengths, weakness, all of those things, so that each one of our students really does have a student experience that is tailored directly to them, which is a true luxury in today's education climate. However, at the college, we are constantly striving to improve our student experience, as we all are. And for that reason, we're always trying to bring innovation into our teaching. And one way we do that is through technology. So being a music school, we have music studios and production studios, but we also have other pioneering uses of technology. The photograph on the screen behind you is our performance simulator. And this is a pioneering use of technology where our students can walk into a room and perform in front of a computer-generated audience, and it can be set to performance mode or concert mode. You can program the audience to react, so they can, I don't think they boo, but they can be negative. You can have a phone go off, you can have people leave the room. The whole performance is recorded so that the students can review that after. So it really allows our students to develop their performance skills in a safe arena. And it's this combination of bringing innovation into tradition that really called for the VLE to be introduced into the college. So in September, this time last year, we introduced Canvas to the college, and it was the first virtual learning environment that the college ever had. We didn't come from a different provider. We had an intranet that was used for very different purposes. And so from the very beginning, for us, it was really important that Canvas was seen as a teaching and learning tool. We needed our professors and our wider staff to understand that Canvas was an extension of the building. It was an extension of the physical teaching spaces that took place on college, and it was not the intranet. And that's something that we've really been mindful of throughout the whole implementation and throughout every use in Canvas. And this is where our tagline, support, enhance, innovate, came from. We wanted every use of Canvas to either support, enhance, or innovate the teaching and learning and the student experience in some way. And we've therefore decided to call Canvas learn.rcm. And the login page is the building. They literally have to go through the building to get in. And to make sure that it was accessible to all of our teaching, from the very beginning, we had a course available for all of our academic, all of our contextual classes, and all of our one-to-one professors. And it was really key for us that it was seen not just as a way to support the academic and contextual classes, but the creative and the artistic and the more practical music-making classes. And for that reason, we needed to involve our one-to-one professors from the very beginning. It was also why we decided, we thought quite a lot about it, to, from the very beginning, not use templates. We didn't have minimum requirements, and we didn't have any forced engagement from our professors. So from this time last year, our professors had the freedom to choose if they wanted to use it, and the freedom to choose how they wanted to use it. They were able to engage at a level that they felt comfortable with, whether it was just to support their teaching or to introduce something new, to enhance and innovate what they were doing. And for us, that was key because it enabled them to feel that they were continuing to be able to provide for their students that bespoke, flexible nature so that they could tailor the tools they were using to that individual student in the room, which for us is really key to our teaching approach. And to parallel our launch this time last year, we developed and ran a program that we refer to as the BOLD program. So that stands for Blended and Online Learning Development. And we recruited 28 professors to be involved in this program, which is about 10% of our teaching staff, who we referred to as BOLD professors, which they quite liked. And this program ran for 6 months from October to about March, and consisted of 6 in-person, face-to-face sessions. Each one of these sessions had a different teaching and learning focus, and in between the sessions, the professors were encouraged to engage with the online Canvas course. So they experienced the Canvas course themselves as learners. They experienced the different functions of Canvas, so we used the announcements and the quizzes, all the different things to show them they could use in their teaching. But what was perhaps more important is they experienced the learning opportunities that Canvas was able to provide for them. They were able to see that we weren't using it to replace our one-to-one lessons. It wasn't a threat to the one-to-one lessons, but it was actually to enhance the quality of the face-to-face time and to bring something else for the students, to give them something in addition to what they were doing. We also really wanted to make the program user-led, and so for that reason, the program really did not focus on how to use Canvas. It wasn't click this button to do this thing, but instead it was encouraging the professors to ask the questions themselves. How could Canvas, how could the VLE and the opportunities that it brings be applied in their own context to support, enhance, or innovate their own teaching and learning and for their own students? And in this way, by posing those questions and constantly reminding and asking the professors to put it into their own context, the professors began to take ownership of the program itself. And as we moved into sessions 4, 5, and 6, the professors themselves were actually running parts of the program. And this is really where the most impact had, when the professors were talking together, discussing, sharing their own examples of what they were doing, and taking what they were doing in to show their colleagues. We also wanted the program to reflect the building, and so for that reason we invited professors from all different aspects of the college, so from the academic, the contextual, and the one-to-one side. We invited professors who were quite new to the college, through to professors who'd been there for a few decades. And we invited professors who were interested in engaging with their teaching. So not necessarily with technology, but just in general with their teaching. And for us that was really important, because I'm sure many other institutions have taken the same approach of wanting to develop a group of champions, so that those professors could then go back to their own context and share with their faculty and their colleagues what they were doing. So I'd just like to talk to you a bit more detail about one of the sessions. And the session I've chosen to talk about is session 4, which was creating and using video as a learning resource. So in this session, we decided to model flipped classroom. So before the session, the professors were asked to go online into the Canvas course, and there was a range of resources that they could choose to engage with, and they all explored how video was used as a learning resource in a variety of different contexts. So we had case studies, blogs, videos, research, scholarly articles, a variety of things, and they were asked to spend however much time they wanted engaging with whichever materials they wanted to. And after they'd done that, they had to contribute to a discussion that answered the question, how could you apply what you've read or what you've watched into your own context, and think of one idea that you could do with this information. So when the professors came to the session, we began with a very lively debate because they already had thoughts having engaged with the material. And what was really interesting is when I asked them what resources they chose to engage with, almost all of them said they just watched the video because they didn't have time, which is fine, that's why the videos were there. And then when I asked how many of you use video in your own teaching, almost none of them use video in their own teaching. So already they were beginning to see themselves as learners and think, so if that's how I approach this learning opportunity, how am I doing it for my students? And they were already engaged to then try and make a video for their students. They already had ideas, so we didn't need to waste any time thinking of ideas, and they were able to spend the majority of the 2-hour session working together to create a video that they could then actually take away and use in their own context. And they all came up with a wealth of different ideas, and one of them I'd like to show you now. So the one I'll show you now is from our piano professor. His name is Simon Lether, and he raised a problem that he currently had with his students in that he's a performer, so he's performing. So he tries to come to college every week for his lessons, but sometimes it's every 2 weeks and they have longer lessons. And sometimes his students, the hour goes by really quickly, they're given a lot of information, and they don't always remember what it is that they've covered in that lesson. So they then go away and they've either spent a week mispracticing what they're trying to achieve or not practicing at all, and that time is wasted. The other problem he identified is that at the very beginning of the term, he's often teaching his students very similar, if not the same thing. So he spends the first 15-20 minutes of every lesson telling these students one at a time the same thing. So he decided that for him a good idea would be to have a bank of resources that were very short, techniques that all of his students needed to know that they could just refer to in between the lessons. And he later took this idea one step further, thinking that actually what he could do is release these videos before the lesson, so the students could watch them before they came to the lesson, have a go at the technique before they came to the lesson, and then in the actual lesson they could spend that whole time working on that technique in the context of whatever piece it was that they were working on. So essentially, without knowing the name, what he was trying was flipped classroom with his own students. So I'll just show you the video that he made in the session. He did make it in a room with other people making other musical videos, so there is a bit of background noise, but he did go away and record a different version later on. But I think it's just quite impressive to see what they achieved themselves. And the professors themselves also did the filming, the sound, and the editing all in that 2 hours. So let's take a look.
Technique of the week. This week, 2-note slurs. Music is littered with 2-note slurs, and it's important to know how to do this at the piano. So you drop the weight into the key and you have the next finger ready. Then by pivoting with the wrist, you play the second note. I'll demonstrate it again. Practicing the 2-note slur in sequence. And now the 2-note slurs in practice in Mozart's Das Veilchen.
So you've got it, you can all go and play your 2-note slurs tonight. So yeah, as you can see, they all managed to create these in the session. And so from the session's point of view, they learned that it didn't actually take that much time. The amount of time that he's now going to save in his lessons by being able to share that with his students makes up for that time. But also what we really took away from the BOLD programme was that having the professors, the teachers, experience the VLE as learners themselves, for us really helped to break down those barriers and those perceptions of what the VLE was and the opportunities that it could bring for their students. They were able to see that it wasn't going to replace their one-to-one time, but actually it was an opportunity for them to use that time to do other things to enhance the learning experience for the students. Another thing that we found was really key to the BOLD programme having impact was really focusing on making those sessions user-led. So giving the control almost over to the professors and the responsibility over to them to ask those questions. How can this be applied in my own context, for my own teaching and my own students? Really made them want to engage because they were doing the things that they felt were most useful for them and their students. So towards the end of autumn last year, the Higher Education Funding Council for England released funding for proposals that would explore experimental innovations in teaching and learning. And we used this as an opportunity to submit a project proposal that would build on the work that our professors were already doing in the BOLD programme, but focusing specifically on our one-to-one teachers. We found that our contextual and our academic teachers were using Canvas more and more, and that was coming in quite naturally to them. They could see the benefits and they could invest in that. But our one-to-one professors, it was very different to what they were doing previously. So they needed a bit more support and a bit more time and resource asking those questions. So we submitted a proposal that asked the question, can the virtual learning environment have a positive impact on student learning experience and teaching and learning in the context of one-to-one music lessons at the conservatoire? And our proposal was accepted, and we've used the funding directly to support the 6 professors who wanted to be involved with that project. Again, we've made the project entirely user-led, so the professors themselves decide to what extent, how much time and how they want to use the virtual learning environment in their own teaching. And some of those professors have even handed that control and those decisions over to the students who are the ultimate users. So the project is really student-led as the students are deciding how they want to use the virtual learning environment. We've also made it so that everything that happens as part of the project is in addition to the one-to-one teaching time. And like I said, the professors are in control of how they spend their time on the project. And that has meant that they've felt that they've been able to maintain the same flexibility that they have when it's just one student and themselves in the classroom, because they've been able to do what they want to do with the virtual learning environment the same way they would as if they were in the classroom. And the professors themselves have all done very different things. They've all chosen very different things to engage with, and I've put just a few of them up on the board for context. But what they've really fed back is that they felt empowered by having that control to be able to do what they want. They're very, very used to being in control of their teaching. The conservatoire, they're in the one-to-one lesson, they're with their students, they can tailor their teaching between students and between cohorts. And so they've enjoyed having that same amount of freedom and empowerment throughout the project. What I think has been interesting is that these different activities seem to be able to fit within 4 different categories. Professors start by using the opportunity to support the students in between lessons, so they provide resources or some form of communication between the lessons for the students. And then they move to enhancing the impact of the face-to-face time. So like the technique videos that we've just seen from Simon, they move something online so that they can use the face-to-face time for something else. And then they move through to innovation. So they're bringing new opportunities for their students that their students didn't have before. They're giving them support and the opportunity to make performance portfolios, or to have peer feedback and peer review of performances between students, or for students to be able to share concerts that they performed in that their professor couldn't attend, or mock auditions that we'll hear a bit more about in a moment. So many orchestral auditions these days are done by video. And so Canvas has enabled them to provide students the opportunity to submit videos and trial mock auditions so that they have practice and develop that skill before they then go out into the real world. Before I hand over to, I'm going to put on a video of our professors and some of our students talking about it. Actually, no, I will do that first. So then I have a video of one of our professors involved in the project and his students talking about what they've been doing as part of the project. It is a few minutes long, but I think it really carries the message coming from them. And whenever they refer to learn, they're referring to Canvas. That's just what we've chosen to call it.
Hi, I'm Amos Miller. I'm one of the trombone profs at the Royal College of Music. I heard about Learn through Jess, our wonderful digital learning manager at the Royal College of Music, and Jess emailed me and said, would I be interested in having a browse at the college's new platform for online learning, and I definitely was. I thought it was a very promising thing to use, so it's turned out to be very useful and interesting. My first thoughts were that it's got sort of limitless possibilities in terms of what it can offer. And it's just been a question of trying to see how those possibilities can best suit an environment where the learning is predominantly one-to-one in a room with somebody, which it sort of has to be. I don't think there's any way around that, but it's been interesting finding complementary things that can enhance that and make that a more efficient process.
Learn is a really good resource to have. It's in addition to what we usually get as a student, so as well as my teaching hours I get for the year, we're also getting this opportunity to use Learn.
I found it really useful to have the interaction online as well as in person with my teacher, because it meant I could get more feedback and I wouldn't have to remember what he said because it's written down online, which is really useful. And if my teacher misses anything in lessons, because they fly by only an hour, it's really useful because they can go back and watch it.
At the start of this year, when my teacher got quite widely involved with Learn, he actually put up a discussion on Learn, funnily enough, to ask us as students what might be very helpful for us. So we all suggested little ideas like practice diaries, or signing up for slots, or sort of how to video yourself, or being mindful, all these sort of things. And luckily enough, we've actually been able to do this in the past few months, so it's been really helpful.
Practice rooms being at a premium at a music college, they have to book them quite a long time in advance. They can't just sort of float around and decide when they feel like they're in the right mood to practice and go and practice. So I know that sometimes I've certainly heard people really terminally wasting time in a practice room because they're probably not quite in the right frame of mind. So I thought it'd be useful to do a little set of 2 or 3 basic warm-up and sort of mindfulness type videos of trying to get them into the right frame of mind. So if they go into a practice room and they're not feeling engaged yet, they can stick their phone on the music stand, and Jess has managed to rig it so that they can, with 3 clicks on their phone, they can get to a video of my ugly mug taking them through some basic breathing exercises. And I always find it's always easier to do those things with somebody taking you through them. It's quite hard to make yourself do them. So I think probably for most people that might have been the most useful thing.
A few weeks ago we had a go in the performance simulator, which was recorded, and then the video was put on Learn, which was really useful because I could watch it back and see how my recital went, and also so my teacher could watch it back, and we could both give feedback to how it went, which meant I could improve it for when the real recital came around.
The performance simulator has been really interesting from my point of view. To be able to witness themselves on a video, seeing how they played in a pressure situation and develop the skills to give themselves a critique of how they've done is really, really useful, because I think that will, when they turn up on their first professional engagements when they leave college, and maybe it doesn't go quite as well as they wanted it to, they can then constructively rather than negatively analyse what they could have done better and how to approach it next time. With our YouTube link page that we put up, it's been interesting, a way of helping me get to know the students a bit better. Seeing what floats their boat is interesting when you then come back into a lesson to see what makes them tick.
It was interesting to see other people's musical intakes, because it literally just opens up your mind. You know, we all sort of have a strong like for classical music, sort of studying at this conservatoire, but people might upload jazz things with little trombone certain features, or Amos uploaded something sort of even more modern, which again, you might think, oh, I didn't think I'd like that sort of music, but actually it opens up your mind, and then you then go on to look at it on YouTube, and then that leads on to other things as well.
Then we can put links to our favourites. It's really good because you get to know other people's tastes in music, you get to know some really fantastic variety, so the jazz musicians, I think there's some folk music on there. It's very easy to use, you just chuck the link on there to YouTube or whatever, and it works really well. You can carry on the class outside of the class, which is really great. More and more auditions and more competitions and more scholarships are being done by video audition as a sort of practice mock audition for a job or a scholarship somewhere. They've all got to go away and film themselves do an audition, 15-minute video, and then they can upload that to Learn, and then I'm going to assess it and give it a mark.
In the studios, my peers and I went in and we were taught how to use video cameras correctly, which was really helpful for in the future if we ever need to do auditions and sort of send them off. And they were then put online so we could sort of see the editing process as well and get a bit of information from that.
I think the opportunity to do a videoed audition, mock audition, which will be assessed but doesn't have a direct bearing on their professional future is a really useful one. At a point at which when they leave college and they want to apply for something that involves a video application, it'll streamline the entire process of them doing it to the point where A, they've got the confidence to know what they're doing, B, it won't take up days of their life worrying about it, and they can think, oh, I know how to do that, I've done that, and I can remember what the feedback was the first time, and hopefully the finished product will be a more convincing one. The tradition of conservatoire learning is a very, 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 very old one of you turn up, you have an hour's lesson with your prof who gives you a grilling on various things and sets you lots of things to go and learn, and you come back next week having done it or not done it or whatever. And obviously learn doesn't threaten that in any way. It's never going to replace and never can replace one-to-one teaching, but I think it can provide a useful sort of grounding point for seeing how their work is going, and for teachers to be able to assess stuff during the week. And for developing a little bit of a community amongst the players. I think Learn has probably developed my teaching in some ways. It certainly focused my mind on ways in which you can think of things that are beneficial for students in a way. So I think my teaching is definitely, hopefully, has improved because of it, because I've got more awareness of what other complementary things I could be using to develop their skills, rather than just, you know, LaFosse Conservatoire Studies for trombone numbers 1 to 12 again. You know, I think that's not that. Hopefully, I was bogged down in that too much, but I think it's definitely improved my teaching. I think the thing I really like about Learn as a platform is the ability to tailor ideas to individual students. I think every student learns in a different way, and that's the joy and the challenge of teaching, is to adapt your method to the student and find out what works for them, and to have the ability to come up with all sorts of different things that Learn can be used for, which can help different students in a different way, is a brilliant resource.
So what we've really learned so far from the project in terms of with working with the one-to-one teachers is that they have been able to maintain that rich tradition of the one-to-one teaching. The virtual learn environment has enabled them to continue to be able to tailor their teaching to provide a bespoke experience for each of their students, but it's also been able to enhance that. Not only enhance what happens in the face-to-face lesson, but it's brought other opportunities along with it that they perhaps didn't explore before. They've been able to develop that community between players and that sense of collaboration between players, which can be quite difficult when every student's having their lesson one at a time. And they've also been able to provide a sense of continuity for their students so that their interaction with their one-to-one teacher isn't just once a week or every time that they see them, but that it's ongoing through the virtual learning environment. So what next? Like I said, we're only now going into our second year of Canvas, so we realise we are very much at the beginning of our journey. But in terms of the one-to-one teachers, this year what we're really doing is thinking about how we can extend that outwards inside the college. So we're thinking about how we can disseminate that information to other professors and engage further professors. And what the professors who've been involved in the project have decided they would like to do is talk to the professors, so tell them why they're involved in the project, what they're doing, what they're achieving, and how those professors can be involved if they want to. So we're looking at how we can disseminate that information. We're also involving students. So this year I've recruited a team of digital learning ambassadors, and I work with them on almost a daily basis at the moment, getting their feedback on how things are going, what they'd like to do, but also they have their own ideas and their own projects that they're carrying out with their professors and their students in their one-to-one teaching. So taken individually, I think some of these can be seen like quite small steps when you look at the isolated activities, but really when you put them all together and look at the larger picture, it is representing a shift from the very traditional Master Apprentice approach towards a more student-centred approach to teaching and learning at the college. And I think I have a few minutes for questions, or I'm also happy for you to reach out to me on email. Great, well, thank you very much.